Well, the title of our sermon today is Walls, like the walls. Walls can be used to separate one thing from another and one person from another. The walls around cities, such as the walls around Jericho, were built for protection and to keep enemies out of the city. People build walls to distance themselves from other people. In Paul's writings to the Ephesians, he mentions a wall of hostility. There was a wall of hostility between the Jews and the Gentiles in the first century. The Jews and Gentiles did not get along. They were different in what they ate, how they dressed, how they worshiped, and in their social customs. The Gentiles worshiped many different gods, and they had no knowledge of Jesus. They did not keep the Mosaic law that the Jews believed in. The Jews worshiped God, and they believed that they were God's chosen people. They actually thought they were superior to the Gentiles. Not only was there a huge social wall of hostility between Jews and Gentiles, there was also an actual physical wall separating the place in the temple where the Gentiles could worship and the place where the Jews could worship. The temple measured 1,200 feet by 900 feet. That's about 4 football fields by 3 football fields. The temple courts were on an elevated platform that was 15 stories high. In the center was the holy place, and around it was the court of priests. Farther east was the court of Israel, and farther east of that court was the court of women. Outside these courts was the outer court, which was the court of the Gentiles. The Gentiles were only allowed to enter this outermost court of the temple, and there were signs on the walls that warned the Gentiles that they should not enter any other part of the temple, and that the penalty for entering would be death. The hostility between Jew and Gentile was immense and intense. One Bible scholar that I read said that for 10 years after Jesus' death and resurrection, the gospel was not even presented to the Gentiles. The preaching done by the disciple was to the Jewish community. The Jews would allow Gentiles to convert to Judaism, but they must enter through circumcision and much learning and strictly following the Jewish law. In effect, Gentiles could not enjoy God's blessing unless they became Jewish. And even then, they were to worship in the Gentile area. There was a definite wall of hostility between the Jews and the Gentiles. In our passage today, Paul is speaking to the Gentiles. He reminds them of how they were before they were Christian. They were separate from Christ. They were foreigners to the covenants of the promise. They were without hope and without God. But Paul gives good news. He tells the Gentiles and the Jews that Jesus Christ has torn down the walls of hostility and has bridged the division between them with his death and resurrection. Jesus has created one new man from Jew and Gentile so that he can reconcile them both to God and a new body. Jesus proclaimed peace to both Jew and Gentile. They were no longer strangers and foreigners to the covenants, no longer without hope, no longer without God. Gentiles and Jews were now fellow citizens in God's kingdom. The great chasm between them was removed. Jesus Christ was the cornerstone for the Jew and the Gentile. Well, all these years later, we, the people of God, are still building walls. In Jesus' day, it was Jew and Gentile. We have different groups today. There is a wall between the people of our country and our politics. One is a Republican, one is a Democrat. We will never agree on how our country should be run. In fact, we cannot even discuss anything about our country's leadership because we get so angry at each other that tempers flare and the walls grow higher. There is a racial wall between people of color and people who are not. After all this time and all the work that has been done, there remains with us undertones of separation and distrust of each other. Too often, husbands and wives end up with a wall between them. This is evidenced by our divorce rate, which in this country in 2021 was 42%. This means that for every 6 people who got married, 2.5 of them would be divorced. Friends build walls between each other. As we today are used to moving quickly and are impatient and unforgiving of each other, we get angry or we get our feelings hurt, and we build a wall of separation between us and the people who should be our friends. Sometimes we even build walls of isolation around ourselves. We try to keep other people from knowing us and try to keep them out. We withdraw from our friends and try to handle everything by ourselves. How do we get ourselves into these circumstances? Sometimes it can be just one little irritation or problem that gets out of hand and grows until it's too big to manage, and we start building walls. Or it can even be something we don't experience firsthand. We hear about something from someone else or from our social media, and again, we start choosing sides and building walls. Jesus said that we should love God, love ourselves, and love one another. He said we should love our brothers. He said we should love our neighbors. It's interesting that when Jesus was asked, who is our neighbor, he told the story of a Samaritan helping someone who was beaten and left for dead on the side of the road. A Samaritan, a Gentile, was the example that Jesus used to illustrate what a neighbor was to the Jews. Jesus gave his very life so that the walls of hostility among his people could be removed. Jesus made all of us one people. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. And there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ. That's Galatians 3:28. Jesus wants to bring down the walls we have built in our minds and hearts that divide us. Jesus Christ is the cornerstone of who and what we are. He is the foundation on which we build our lives. Let us ask him to help us to tear down our walls of hostility and be of one mind and one spirit in him. Let's take a look at how we build our walls today and how they can separate us from one another.
I like this garden. I like it a lot.
Oh, it's a splendid garden, a beautiful garden, the perfect garden. You know what, though? It would look better if we had some marigolds over here.
Marigolds? No, I don't think so. What do you want to do that for? You just said it was a perfect garden.
Well, it's not quite perfect enough. I think I'll just put a row of orange and gold marigolds right here.
You don't plant them any farther than this.
Why not?
Because this is my side.
What do you mean, my side?
Oh, you know. My, as in I, me, mine.
No, I don't know. What do you mean? My, as in my, me, my, mine.
I'll show you. Everything from here over is not for marigolds, orange, yellow, or gold. No marigolds. This is mine.
What do you think you're doing?
I like this shade tree.
Well, it's not your tree to enjoy.
I've always enjoyed this tree. It's my favorite shade tree.
It's nor your tree at all. It's my tree. You know, my as in I, me, my, mine, my marigolds, yellow and orange and gold, and my shade tree.
What do you think you're doing with that topsoil?
It's for my marigolds.
They may be your marigolds, but that's my soil. Put it back. Watch it, that's my foot.
Well, it may be your foot, but this is my land, and I don't like your shadow on my property.
Generations passed, and everyone was born on one side of the wall or the other. Since the wall had been there for as long as anyone could remember, they all assumed that it would be there forever. And whenever they were discontent with their lives, they always blamed the person on the other side of the wall, and that only built the wall higher.
I don't like the way you get all the morning light.
I don't like the way you get all the evening light.
You look strange to me.
We don't associate with people of your kind.
That's a man for you.
That's a woman for you.
Look at that beautiful fruit tree.
I, me, my, mine. If I could just divert this stream of water to my great shade tree.
I, me, mine. If I could just take over the other side of the wall, my heart would not be restless and I would be at peace.
If I could just take over the other side of the wall, my heart would not be restless and I would be at peace.
And still, more generations passed, and everyone who was born on one side of the wall or the other. And the wall had now been there so long that people began to believe it was God who had built the wall. And so they strengthened the wall and built it yet higher in the name of religion.
Why do you pray like that? Have you not read that our ancestors raised their hands to the heavens?
Why do you pray like that? Have you not read that every knee should bow to God?
Mine is the true worship.
Mine is the true worship.
And so it went from generation to generation. People making the wall higher and higher, stronger and stronger, sometimes knowing why, and sometimes just doing it out of fear and ignorance. New generations came along, and there the wall stood, and would have stood forever, except one day someone called out.
Hello? Hello? Is anybody over there?
Yes, I am.
Well, this wall is too high. It is blocking out the sunlight for my yellow and orange and gold marigolds, and they are not growing well.
What marigolds?
Oh, you can't see them. That's what I meant. This wall is too high. Let's take it down.
Take down the wall? I can't even see you. How do I know you won't do something awful? This wall stays until I can see you.
Hello? Look through here. You'll see my face.
Oh, I see you. I see your marigolds. Well, they need more sun.
Let's shake on that. Now that you can see my face, don't you want to take this wall down? It is hard work to take this wall down.
It's been up for so long, and it's jammed together with so much encrusted cement.
You have to work very hard to take down a wall. Where do you get the strength to take down the wall?
I don't know. I don't think I have the strength. But sometimes when you know that something is right to do, sometimes when you feel that God wants you to do something, you just start moving in that direction, and amazingly, you're able to do it. I guess if we're going to do what God wants us to do, He'll make sure we have the ability to complete the job. And where do you get the strength to take down the wall?
I don't know that I have the strength either. I just pray to God that He will help me and know what is right to do and have the strength of mind and body to follow through. Jesus Christ gives me my strength.
Can you feel the wind blowing freely now that the wall is down?
Yes, oh yes I can. And can you see how the light shines on everything with fewer deep shadows?
I can, and it makes me so happy. I want to rejoice and sing.